Morpe. The forest was silent, a silence that cut like glass. Jason, the newly turned vampire, smelled blood on the night breeze. A different kind of blood, the smell of fear, and Linda. She, the beautiful Native American woman with eyes as deep as night, was in danger. Something huge and hairy moved among the trees, growling low, a shadowy menace Jason could feel in his very soul. Werewolf, or something far worse? Jason needed to reach her, but a deadly trap was closing around him, a trap of shadows and magic, designed to separate them forever. Will Jason save Linda before it's too late? The dark forest whispered frightening secrets on that moonless night. The trees, tall and thin like skeletal fingers, seemed to point at Jason, a still inexperienced, newly turned vampire, his heart, or whatever the equivalent of a heart in a being like him was, pounding in his chest. The air was heavy, humid, and thick with a strange perfume, a mix of the metallic scent of blood and the sweet, earthy aroma of damp soil. It was a scent that brought him a delicious and terrifying memory at the same time, the scent of Linda. Linda, the Native American woman with raven black hair and eyes that shone with an ancient light so deep they seemed to hold the secrets of the entire forest. He had seen her for the first time in that same place, a vision as beautiful as it was dangerous. She was unlike any woman he had ever known, unlike any creature that inhabited the world. Linda carried a power within her, an ancestral power, a legacy from her ancestors, secret keepers of the wolves' secrets, a power that was only now beginning to awaken. And that power made her a target. A low, guttural growl echoed between the trees, breaking the frightening silence. Jason felt a shiver run down his spine, not from cold, but from a visible, palpable threat that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Something enormous was approaching. Something wild and dangerous. It was a dark shadow moving among the thick trunks, a menacing silhouette that promised pain and suffering. Jason could smell the fear, the intense scent of terror emanating from Linda, a scent that burned within him like incandescent embers. He needed to reach her. He needed to protect her, but there was an invisible barrier between them, a web of dark, powerful black magic. It was a trap, a very well-designed trap that imprisoned him, trapping him in a labyrinth of shadows, a deadly labyrinth created by his enemies. The vampire master, the same one who had transformed him, had hidden motives, intrigues, and plans that Jason did not yet understand, but which were beginning to take shape in his mind like a macabre puzzle. Jason, with his heightened senses, noticed slight changes in the vegetation, tiny details that indicated the presence of other beings. The smell of blood intensified, mixing with the scent of pine and earth. He could sense the presence of more than one creature. Werewolves? It was hard to tell. Fear was a fog that enveloped the forest, a veil that obscured vision and confused the senses. But the love for Linda, a new and overwhelming feeling for an immortal being like him, gave him the strength to fight, to overcome any obstacle. Suddenly, a green emerald glow cut through the darkness, coming from the direction where Linda was. It was an intense, magical glow, pulsating with ancestral energy. Linda was using her power, fighting against the invisible threat that surrounded her. That glow was like a beacon on that starless night, showing Jason the way forward, even if the path was full of dangers. The trap was complex, involving physical traps and black magic, but Jason's love for Linda was stronger than any magic. Among the shadows, Jason saw two pairs of bright eyes, red as embers, watching him. They were the eyes of his enemies, the eyes of those who wanted to prevent the union between him and Linda, a forbidden love in a world of supernatural creatures in conflict. The battle for Linda's love was just beginning, a battle that would decide not only the fate of Jason and Linda, but also the future of all those who lived on the border between the world of humans, werewolves, and vampires. The quest for love amidst a bloody battle was far from over, and with each step the danger increased. With every whisper of the wind, a new enemy appeared, but Jason was determined. He would save Linda no matter the cost. His heart beat strongly with determination and love. The dark forest was the stage, and the fight for survival and love was about to begin. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Jason moved with the agility of a cat, his sharp senses picking up every noise, every change in the night breeze. Linda's scent guided him, a thread of hope amidst the darkness. But the black magic that held him captive was powerful, invisible webs that prevented him from moving forward directly. He needed to find a loophole, a way out of this deadly trap. As he fought against the invisible forces, he felt a cold shock down his spine. Someone was watching him. It wasn't the werewolves, at least not just them. He sensed a familiar scent, a metallic and repugnant smell, which he knew very well. The scent of his master, the ancient vampire who had transformed him. He was there, among the shadows, manipulating events, weaving the trap. And Jason realized with a shock of understanding that the trap was not only to separate him from Linda, but also to test him, to assess his loyalty and his power. He was not simply a servant, he was a piece in a deadly and complex game. The force of the black magic increased every second, making the barrier almost impenetrable. Jason felt the pressure, an invisible force that crushed him, trying to suffocate his soul. He growled, an expression of pure rage and determination. He would not yield. He would not allow his master to manipulate him. He would fight for his love, for Linda. He clenched his fists, his heightened senses searching for a weakness in the magic, a point where he could break the barrier. Linda, at the same time, was facing her own battle. The ancestral power within her was growing, an overwhelming force that she did not yet know how to control completely. She fought against the werewolves, ferocious and relentless beings, but her power, her ancestral knowledge, made her a formidable adversary. She felt Jason's presence, his strength, his determination, and it gave her more courage, more strength to fight. But she also felt the presence of the vampire master, a malignant presence that filled her with fear. Suddenly, a huge wolf, bigger and fiercer than the others, emerged from the shadows. Its eyes shone with a malignant light. Its snout was stained with blood. It was the Alpha, the leader of the pack, a powerful and relentless being. It roared, a sound that made the forest itself tremble, and attacked Linda with fury. She defended herself with all her might, using her ancestral power to create an energy shield. But the Alpha was too strong, its sharp claws tearing through the air. Jason, seeing Linda in danger, made a supreme effort to break through the barrier of black magic. He concentrated all his energies, all his willpower, on a single point, on a single goal, to break the invisible bonds that held him captive. His muscles ached, his body trembled, but he did not give up. He screamed, a cry of defiance, a cry of love. And then, with a deafening roar, the barrier broke. Jason lunged towards Linda, his supernatural speed allowing him to cover the distance in the blink of an eye. He placed himself between Linda and the Alpha, his eyes meeting those of the giant wolf in a silent challenge. The fight was just beginning, a bloody battle, a fight for survival and love. But now, Jason and Linda were together, united against a common enemy, united by a love that transcended the barriers of species, worlds, and magic. The forest witnessed the beginning of an epic battle, where love and courage would be tested to their limits. The fate of Jason and Linda, and of the entire supernatural world, hung on the edge of a sharp claw and an immortal heart. The final battle, a life-or-death struggle between love and hate, light and darkness, was about to begin. The forest trembled with the impact of Jason's body hitting the ground, the shock of the landing reverberating through his bones. He rose, pain throbbing in his newly transformed body, but the sight of Linda fighting the alpha werewolf spurred him on. His eyes, shining with a mixture of rage and determination, met the ferocious eyes of the giant wolf. It was an unequal fight, the brute force of the alpha against Jason's speed and agility, complemented by Linda's growing magical power. She, with an ancestral cry, launched a beam of green emerald energy at the wolf, making it recoil for a moment. But the alpha was relentless. Its fury was a hurricane of sharp claws and teeth. Jason attacked with the speed of lightning, his teeth sharp as blades aimed at the wolf's neck. The alpha dodged the blow at the last moment, growling furiously. The fight became a whirlwind of claws, teeth, and magic. Linda, using her ancestral powers, conjured beams of green emerald energy, distracting the alpha and allowing Jason to wound it with small but precise blows. Despite his superhuman power and strength, Jason felt exhaustion approaching. The recent transformation still demanded a great effort from him, consuming his energies with every movement. Suddenly, a new roar, more powerful and terrifying than the others, cut through the air. A gigantic shadow approached, a colossal figure that towered over the trees, its dark and menacing form casting a fog of terror over the clearing. It was a werewolf, but unlike any Jason had ever seen, larger, more monstrous, with eyes that shone with an infernal red light. It was the Supreme Alpha, the ancestor, the leader of all werewolves, a legendary creature said to have been dead for centuries. The Supreme Alpha roared again, its voice a thunder that shook the very earth. Its eyes fixed on Jason, on Linda, on their vampire master, who watched everything from the darkness, a sinister smile drawn on his lips. The vampire master was a player, a master of manipulation, and the emergence of the Supreme Alpha confirmed his cunning and his sinister plan. He had unleashed the Supreme Alpha to cause chaos and destruction, a plan to test the power of the young vampires and confirm Jason's own loyalty. The Supreme Alpha attacked, its immense power throwing Jason and Linda away, as if they were mere toys. Linda, wounded and exhausted, fell to the ground, gasping for breath, her magical power rapidly depleting. Jason, sensing the gravity of the danger, rose, his eyes meeting those of the vampire master. A new threat, more powerful than any before, hung in the air. The power of the Supreme Alpha was an uncontrollable brute force. The final battle, the battle for survival and love, had taken a darker, more dangerous turn. The fight against the vampire master and his complex plan became secondary to the immediate and devastating danger of the werewolf ancestor. Jason knew he needed a plan, a daring and desperate plan, to defeat the Supreme Alpha and save Linda before it was too late. But how to do it? The vampire master merely watched, pleased with the chaos he had caused. The episode ends with the image of the Supreme Alpha roaring over Linda, unconscious on the ground, while Jason, wounded and tired, looks at the vampire master with an expression of rage and defiance. The forest is silent, a silence that precedes the storm. What will Jason's next move be? How will he defeat the Supreme Alpha and the vampire master? Will the love between Jason and Linda be strong enough to survive this new and terrible threat? The answer will be revealed in the next episode.